and welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Kyle.
And we are your Morning Throners. And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners with the Queenmaker on deck. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
I think this is a big turnaround from last chapter. Again, I like last chapter. Everybody know what I think about last chapter.
You don't like last chapter. You're lying to yourself every time you say that about it.
Nah, you're lying to yourself. I convinced you to like the last chapter by the time we were done with it, the Brienne one. But Kyle, what do you think of this one? And I guess even Jeff, what do you think? I think this one's a little more interesting than the Brienne one, regardless, right?
That's so funny. Like, until the very end, I had like no idea what was going on, who any of these people were. I did not care.
Well, they're all new people, right?
This was like a what in the fuck is happening kind of chapter. Brienne chapter was way better than this one, in my opinion. Until the very end. And even then, this whole Ares thing, and now it's over, and like I feel like that he was wasted. I feel like we get wasted.
I mean, but last week you liked the Nimbledick. You're all about learning about Nimbledick and the distrust for him. He was a one-off thing.
Yeah, I'm saying he got wasted here. It was like I was excited for him to actually get to fight Hota, and then it was like,
yeah, he just got out. Hota's a bitch. They should have 1v1'd.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was not even a fair fight. He just did real dumb shit and then just left.
Yeah, so I guess the summary. We didn't say summary.
Wait,
is
you didn't take my opinion.
Well, I'll say summary real quick.
Why?
Just so anyone who's listening who hasn't read is aware of what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
Summary is basically Ariane's plan that she talked about in the last Ares Ogar chapter comes to fruition. Her and all her friends from childhood meet up and try to start the mission of leaving with Marcella and then eventually crowning her. And then it doesn't end well. Area Hota is all on top of it, and it ends it short. And ends Ares short too. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, so I like the chapter better than Brienne. I don't know why. Maybe because it was 8 pages less. It's probably a big part of it. But
that's such a shit reason.
Well,
sorry.
It's just how I attack this book.
I'm all for you having an opinion. I think that is a shit one.
Well, it was
Go
half
ahead,
a
continue
joke.
though on the rest of the why.
It was half a joke. I agree though. Like I don't care about Garen. Like you could tell me the people that are there, but like I don't need.
But you couldn't.
I can right now. Garen, Dre, Spotted, Sylvain, and Gerald Darkstar. Try again, bitch.
Okay, good. I'm impressed. Are you looking at it? Do you have it in front of you? Okay.
I'm tinkering over here. No, but like, all right. So we got to the point where like you got to every chapter so far has been let's try to filter through what actually matters to you in the story, and then bam, something cool's gonna happen in the last 3 pages.
Yeah.
That's been the formula. I mean, I don't know. Go back to the Queen's Moot thing. Probably the last 3 at least, right? Well, I like the Queen's Moot. I thought the Queen's Moot was kind of funny.
More entertaining throughout than just at the very end.
More entertaining throughout than, all right, we're riding. All right, we're stopping. All right, we're riding. Let's think about this while we ride. Bam! Hota shows up with an axe. Like, at least I could be like, oh, shit. Like, that's cool. But I knew what was happening.
I think, again, there's like... Sorry, go ahead, go.
It also didn't help that like everybody had 2 names. They were all like kind of friends with each other. It was even hard to tell from the beginning, kind of even whose point of view the chapter was. I don't know. It was just all like this hazy mess until it kind of got into like it kind of fleshed itself out, right? Like you see Ares show up and Marcella. This one I wasn't invested in.
I'll say this. I think this storyline's better than Brienne's because we know Brienne is like literally on the wrong track.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of close, but she's actually nowhere close.
Okay.
And there's mystery in what's going on in Dorne. So I will say that I would rather uncover that than like, all right, Brienne.
I think that part is fair
on a side quest that nobody cares about right now because she's nowhere close.
To say that you want to learn more about Dorne is fair. I think it was more of just like the chapter itself. I don't know how you extract Dorne from that, so I don't know that you can, but you know what I'm saying, like for the substance side of it.
Well, the thing I think about these 2 chapters, like I guess they are similar, right? We kind of just ride for a while or just talk for a while, and then there's something at the very end. But again, I think like the Brienne chapter, this one kind of has a theme that goes throughout. The Brienne one, I think, is more general feminism, chivalry, knights versus ladies in this world. This one, I think, is more Ariane is in way over her head and doesn't understand that she's like playing the Game of Thrones, right? Like the biggest thing to me that I'm realizing on this read through is like, who did she invite? She didn't invite people of great influence in Dorne. She literally just invited all her best friends.
Well,
right?
she thought she was inviting the people that she could trust.
Yeah.
And because she's a princess, it so happens that a lot of her friends are also like the heir to their castles and stuff. But like the one thing that I was surprised by is like when she's like, what's the plan after we get on the boat? We're going to get on the boat, take it to the further west, and we're going to get to one castle. And she's just hoping that castle is going to be on their side because the lord of that castle is the grandfather to a bunch of sand snakes. So he's like, oh, that guy must hate what happened to Oberyn.
Yeah, but maybe actually not.
Exactly. Like, is that guy really going to stick his neck out to go?
This is kind of back to what you were saying about Asha and her promise based on this guy that may listen to her based on a prisoner kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. And I think kind of like Aaron, she's kind of lying to herself, right? Like she doesn't think that she's doing this for herself. She thinks she's doing this because Marcella deserves it.
I don't know if
I
believe that.
When Darkstar at one point's like, what do you want? He's like, you want a vengeance for Oberyn, you want the Sand Snakes freed. And what she thinks to herself is like, yeah, and I want my birthright.
I was to say, it seems like she's doing it for herself.
Yeah, because it gets her.
You just said you didn't think she was. I think she is.
I don't think she really cares if Marcella's queen or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's doing it for herself, but she's lying to herself, kind of like how Aaron was lying that the king's mood is what we really want, when really all he really wanted was to...
Not Euron.
Exactly. She wants not Quentin. What's the path to that? That's kind of like righteous and in line and technically by the law or whatever, right? But yeah, that's not... She doesn't really care about that.
Which this Quentin dude is another kind of mystery. Let's keep going, I guess, because he does come up in the chapter, so we can talk about him then.
All right, so Ariane's arriving at Shandystone with Dre and Sylvia.
It sounds like a beer.
Yeah, well, some are shandies.
Some are shandies.
A shandy is like a lemony beer.
Is that Lyman Cooler? Lyman Kugler?
Lyman Kugel?
Lyman Kugel?
Lyman Kugel.
Gotcha.
But there's other shandies too.
Okay.
Isn't it like lemonade and beer?
Yeah, basically. Garen and Darkstar have been here for a day.
Yep.
Darkstar's name is Gerald Dane. We learned that a little bit later.
Yep. And Ariane's arriving with Dre, whose real name is Andre Dalt, and her friend Silva Santagar, who goes by Spotted Silva sometimes. So yeah.
Because she got them freckles.
And she's the heir to Spotswood. But yeah, they show up. Ariane's basically like, how do you know this place? They ask her. She's like, one time Oberyn brought me here with two of my cousins, Tyene Sand and Sorella Sand. He showed Tyene how to milk the vipers, which is interesting because Tyene is like the poisoner. Like we know she's like the main poisoner of the sand snakes. With the one had like the spear, the other one she was like the nice but like poisony or one. So he showed her how to milk the sand snakes. The other one we haven't met Sorella Sand, but she basically just like wanted to walk around and find out everybody who lived here, get the history kind of. And he's like, well, what'd you do, Ariane? And she's like, well, I kind of fantasized about a man kidnapping me and having his way with me here.
That was a weird little dream.
Weirder when I go into this. So she says in her dream it was a tall, hard man with black eyes and a widow's peak. We don't know many people with a widow's peak. When we look it up, the one that matches it, the only person that really matches this description so this first off, I'll say it seems like Dornish features from the investigations I did on this. Like dark and widow's peak seem like Dornish features. But this was Tyrion's description of Oberyn. Large, dark eyes, black and shiny as pools of coal oil. Only a few streaks of silver marred the lustrous black hair that receded from his brow, and a widow's peak as sharply pointed as his nose. So the only other times we've heard of people with widow's peak are Rattleshirt, Cotter Pike, the Sphinx in Old Town, and Nymeria, which is one of the other sand snakes.
So do you think that she was fantasizing about just some random guy, or is this her fantasizing about her uncle?
The only reason I think it could be her uncle is because when they're like, what did you do while you were here? She doesn't really say. She's like, I dreamt.
And she sat at his lap, right?
And then I sat at Oberyn's feet. Exactly. So she doesn't. And she's like, it made the memory made her uncomfortable. Or something
exactly.
Like that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that I guess I was just trying to make sure that we were all on the same kind of page there, or
I think in general, it might be uncomfortable to tell your friends that you were fantasizing about like being kidnapped and a guy having your way.
Though,
like,
not her at this point, right? Like, so what we know of her, she doesn't seem to be that reserved.
Well, and Ares literally does this with her later, and she just kind of like pushes him off and laughs it off both times. Like he tries to have his way with her in this ruins later when he shows up, right when they're alone.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're kind of like a couple. Like he's
Yeah. I think the other interesting thing that we talked about a lot about in that chapter is like, does she really, how interested is she in him in this? Really, when she's like convincing him to help me crown Marcella. I think this chapter makes it pretty clear she likes him.
She had some feelings.
She has no issues with him, but like there's nothing super deep there.
Yeah. Well, okay. We come up pretty quickly right after it. She's just looking at Gerald Darkstar Dane.
Exactly.
And there was a little part of like Garen the Great, which sounds like he got killed by
Valyrians.
Dragons. But he did something cool, but didn't win. So, but
I don't know the history of like the super details, but you guys don't care anyway. I think the general gist is Garen the Great and Nymeria were kind of like contemporaries who had two different views. Nymeria was like, so basically the Rhoynar is a big river in Essos. It's where a lot of these people came from. Valyrian started burning their shit with dragons. Garen the Great's like, let's fight them. Generally, that's his stance. We can take them. Nymeria's like, let's get the fuck out of here. I think they kind of split. That's where Nymeria's 10,000 ships. We hear that she eventually ends up in Dorne. They try and stay at a bunch of other places first, but they end up in Dorne and then they burn their ships. Right? We hear that a little bit later.
Where's Essos again?
It's where Dany is.
Okay.
It's just the other continent.
It's the other side of Westeros. Wait, what's Nymeria's last name? Is she Martell?
She becomes Martell. She marries Mors Martell when she lands. I don't know if she had a last name before. She was from Essos, right? She was a Rhoynar.
Is there a Nymeria what was the Targaryen? Was there a Nymeria Targaryen?
There's a Nymeria Sand. Okay. So Oberyn has named one of his.
What's one of the two sisters of Aegon? Give me their names real quick. The Conqueror.
Visenya and Rhaenys.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm thinking of, was it Visenya the warrior?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. But Arya's talked about Nymeria before too, right?
What Arya's wolf's name, Nymeria. Yeah.
Right.
After this female hero.
Yep. Dots connected.
Yep.
Yeah, but back to Darkstar. Are you done on Gerald Gavin?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of Garen the Great. Is he had this other view? It's like, no, we're Rhoynar. We're gonna fight the Valyrians, and he's like, he was named Garen the Great for that. And Gerald Dane basically is like, will they call me Gerald the Great if I lead 500,000 men to my death? Yeah. So again, we don't get the details, but whatever Garen the Great did, seems like it ended in death.
And I feel like we do get the other half of it later on when we learn about the orphans of the Green Water. Right.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happens with Nymeria's people once they land.
Yeah, folks, come over. All right, but she's looking at Darkstar, and we find out he's a Dane. That's where they drop his name. And Ariane's also like, all right, like I could take him. Like he's pretty good to look at. Like decent birth, everything like that.
Yep.
But the dad wouldn't be happy. He must have a bad reputation. Bad boy.
Yeah. And read his physical description, Kyle.
Sir Gerald Dane had an aquiline nose, high cheekbones, a strong jaw. He kept his face clean-shaven, but his thick hair fell to his collar like a silver glacier, divided by a streak of midnight black. He has a cruel mouth, though, and a crueler tongue. His eyes seemed black as he sat outlined against the dying sun, sharpening his steel, but she had looked at them from a closer vantage, and she knew that they were purple. Purple. Dark and angry.
Yep. Interesting physical description. Silver hair, purple eyes.
Yeah.
That's Rhaegar, right? That's what
we keep hearing this. This has come up a few times, though.
Recently, just because Cersei keeps thinking Urain Waters looks like Rhaegar.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this has come up a bunch recently.
What did he have? Silver hair, but not purple eyes.
They were close. They were like blue or something.
Yeah, like gray, green or something. But they look purple sometimes. Yeah. So I don't know. Just interesting.
Okay. So they build up a fire. Garen starts telling stories about what the sailors around the Narrow Sea are saying about what's going on in Essos. We get a handful of things: slave revolt in Astapor, dragons are in Karth, plague in Yeti, and then a whole bunch of other stuff now that I skipped because I got tired of writing it. So you can finish the list.
Corsair King.
Hang on. Those first ones we've heard of, right? At least Astapor, like we know Dany was part of. The dragons is also Dany. Like, so I guess what I'm getting at is where like these things seem true, right?
Yeah.
A little bit late though, right? Like dragons and Karth.
I mean, think of how far away this is.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like based off the news timeline, like Dany's not in Karth anymore, which is where they're rumored to be.
Well, also Astapor, they heard about the slave revolt there, which was kind of Dany. So again, news is coming at different paces. The other thing is the new Corsair King has risen in the Basilisk Isles. Corsair King, that just means like a pirate, right? Well, I went to put in Corsair King to put this guy in as a new note, and we already heard of a Corsair King when Dany was in Astapor, when she was basically arguing with the guy who was selling her Unsullied. she was like, oh, I'm going to buy 7. The guy was like, well, tell her to hurry up because tell her there was a Corsair King who wanted to buy all of them. And Missandei was like, wait, that guy only wanted to buy 100. And he's like, well, don't tell her that. Tell her he wanted to buy all of them. But so there was somebody here, the Corsair King, who in Astapor who wanted to buy Unsullied. And here we hear of a Corsair King. Again, I'm not sure exactly what that means. If that just means pirate, they might not be the same person. But yeah, who's risen in the Basilisk Isles, taken Tall Tree Town. In Qohor, the followers of the Lord of Light have rioted and tried to burn the Black Goat, which is the god of Qohor, which again was why, like, Vargo Hoat, who's from Qohor, is called the part of why he's called Goat. And then we've heard this one before. The Golden Company broke contract with Mir right as Mir was about to go to war with Lice. Spotted Sylvia says...
We call him the Lyseni, right? So
that the Lyseni, bought them off. And Dre seems to agree with that and is like, that's clever, but also craven. But Arianne thinks she knows better. She thinks that Quentin probably is the one that bought the Golden Company. She thinks their cry is beneath the gold, the bitter steel, and that Quentin will need more than bitter steel if he wants to set her aside. So,
hey, hang on, real quick though. Like, so that we were talking about these other plot point or other things, and that was kind of why I wanted to talk about them because we get into this Quentin thing for a little bit here. But anyway, so the Grey Plague in Yeti. Did we hear anything about Yeti? Have we been to Yeti?
No, Yeti's like really far east. We haven't really heard anything about it. I think that's a nothing.
But that's probably just grayscale. It sounds like Outbreak.
Yeah, Grey Plague,
kinda.
I think, could be grayscale. I'm not sure, though.
All right. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is like these things seem kind of correct. So it seems like the news it's getting here, at least, is logical.
Yeah, but I think, like Jeff said, that we can see that like even the news we're getting is slightly outdated or kind of wrong or whatever. So like, yeah, I'd say there's probably truth in everything, but there's also probably a little bit of not 100% up-to-date factual information and everything too.
Fair enough.
Yep.
But yeah, so the Golden Company thing is interesting because we've already heard this, right? Arianne already pretty much told Ares this theory that Quentin was trying to get the Golden Company.
Yeah.
But when Cersei held her council, they heard that the Golden Company broke contract, and some people in the council were afraid that they were going to join Stannis, right? Because these are a bunch of exile lords who wanted to come back.
Yeah, they thought they were like going, or didn't they think they were going all the way around to the Iron Islands or something like that? So
they had it, but Cersei's like, no, that's not. They're not joining Stannis. We've heard that they're going to Volantis. They've already set sail to Volantis, which is
southeast,
more east from Mir. So Westeros is west of Mir. Volantis is east of Mir. They've left Mir and started going to Volantis. So Cersei's like, they're not coming towards us. Not our problem. It's kind of weird.
Don't worry about them, cats.
They're going in Essos, right?
Yeah, further into Essos, further towards Dany, basically.
Yeah, so they're probably trying to get the dragons as well at this point. I think the dragon news seems to be out. I guess this is maybe me kind of revising whatever prediction I had of that. I think that's kind of where this seems to be pointing is for sure. This dragon news is out, and so the power players are kind of looking into that as an option because I mean it's definitely a way to make a small force larger. It's a force multiplicator
for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's some more that we could talk about that with Quentin, but Quentin gets brought up a few times, so we can talk about some of that when he gets brought up next time.
So Darkstar gets up to pee. The group just kind of is like, nah, don't know about that guy. Kind of 50-50 on him.
Yeah, so he is weird. Like, he's kind of the odd man out. Like I think she says it in a second here. Garen was my milk brother. So, like, his mom, I was on the tit with him, basically. We've been friends ever since. Sylvia and Dre are, like, my two best friends behind Tyene Sand, my cousin. So, like, these guys are my best friends. She doesn't really say why Gerald's here or how she knows him. Right, Gerald Dane, Darkstar.
They do say why he's here.
He's here.
Well, he's a good sword. I need his house. I need his castle. Yeah,
just in case we need a sword, and we definitely need his castle.
But she doesn't really explain her relationship to him, so I think that's weird.
I don't know if there is one.
Well, that's fair, but it's just like these guys are just her friends. Again, like one of the things about my complaints about her plan here is it seems just like if I was gonna try to take over America, and I'm like, yo, Jeff, Kyle, but we got this. Like, I would need people with bigger pull than just like my two friends.
But you don't need everybody. You don't need everybody yet.
That's fair. Yeah, start small.
Her mission, honestly, she probably only needed Garen. She needed a boat rower.
That's true. Yeah. And what we hear at the very end of the chapter, last lines is somebody told, right?
Somebody told.
Part of her problem is we included too many people.
She had too many as was. You want to bring more people on. I think she should have kept spotted Sylvia at the house and maybe kept Gerald wherever he was. But yeah, it failed.
That's fair.
So
yeah, they're joking, but she walks off, right?
She looks up at the stars a little bit. She sees is it Nymeria, the star of Nymeria?
Yep.
And she's like, "Ha, Quinn, we're gonna fuck you up. Don't try to come over here."
Well, this is cool. She's like, yeah, that's Nymeria's star burning bright. That and the milky band behind her, those are 10,000 ships. She burned as bright as any man, and so shall I. You will not rob me of my birthright. Is she looking at the Milky Way? Are they just on another planet in the Milky Way?
I don't know if it's it could just be another galaxy.
She says a milky band behind the star of 10,000 ships.
Isn't that how you would consider most galaxies, though?
Yes. There's definitely other galaxies that have similar makeups.
I don't know. I can't tell you how any other galaxy looks from inside it. I can just tell you how the Milky Way looks like from inside it.
Why is the Milky Way the Milky Way?
Because it looks milky when you look up at the sky, I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure about that. That's what I'm guessing.
No one's ever looked up at the sky at the Milky Way unless it's another... We're all in the Milky Way. How can you look up at it?
We're in an arm.
We're in the thing.
Yeah, we're in an arm of it. So if you look towards the middle, there's a big, like, milky, glowing band across the sky.
Okay, I'll bite. I meant more so like you were like third person in on it, not out at it.
No. I mean, that's what the Milky Way looks like from our perspective. Is it doesn't look like a galaxy. Like if you look at the Andromeda galaxy from where we are, it just looks like a bright star because we're so far away. All those stars are are so close together relatively. But us, we're in the arm of our own galaxy. So looking in towards our own galaxy, we just see all the stars on the same general plane, right?
Sure.
So it's like
but
milky...
it doesn't look like I'm looking out and it's not giving milky to me.
Well, if you were in Colorado in a dark sky,
I don't know if you've seen it well enough.
I mean, I've been to like the most remote part of our state, and I wasn't thinking like, oh wow, the sky's milky.
If you look at a dark sky map, and you can't get there till you get
you can definitely
outside.
See it.
I mean, I've seen it in my backyard, so you can see it. But you got to know what you're looking for. But yeah,
probably just a cloud. You guys were drunk.
And the way she describes it is a milky band. Those are her 10,000 ships, right? That she kind of says like, oh, it looks like a milky band to me, but those are 10,000 ships, which almost to me makes me think like, oh, a maester. When they look at that shit in the telescope, they realize it's not just a milky. But I don't know. I'm reading. I'm a star. You guys know I'm a space guy, so I'm reading too far into it.
You are reaching.
But now headcanon for 100% is this is just a different planet somewhere in the Milky Way.
All I'm saying is why can't it be another spiral galaxy closer?
It can probably. But yeah. She said milky, so come on.
Yeah, so I mean there could be other ones that are fucking.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
they probably all look similar, but it's not as fun.
I think they roll. Oh no, they don't roll out yet because Marcel's not there. But she starts thinking then on Quentin on how he got sent off too young of an age and how mom was pissed off about that. And I don't think dad really cared for it either. But it is what it is. He had to do what he had to do.
He was sent off as a blood debt. Martell's owed a blood debt to the Ironwoods. This isn't clear what it is, but we kind of know. We know that Oberyn killed one of the Euronwoods in a tourney.
Wow, I just got you to switch to Euronwood that quick.
Ironwood in a tourney, in a melee.
That seems like it's, I mean, that's, you die in purpose? Sport. Yeah.
So people think he injured Willis Tyrell on purpose, too, right? But we know when he talked to Tyrion, he's like, me and Willis are great friends. We write letters to each other. We both love hockey, and we talk about our favorite Hawks all the time. Like, I meant him no ill will. What Oberyn says about Willis was it was Mace's fault. He wanted like all his kids to be really good knights, so he was entering them into these tourneys way too young. So I don't think we know as much detail on this occasion, but
I'm going to say it's not either, unless he like the first Dunk and Egg where they took the spiked. Remember that in the what's it called, the
joust? In
the joust, the dude literally took a pointed joust at the guy instead of the fisted one. Like, that's cheating.
Like switched equipment out, yeah.
Yeah. If he didn't do that, then you just come on. The guy died in fight in sport.
I mean, it could be like he singled him out, chased him down, and beat the shit out of his head until his brains came out. Like, I mean, like to say.
Well, we know what happened, so I'll give you guys a little bit more. What happened was Oberyn was found in bed with this guy's paramour, not his wife, his paramour. So like found in bed with his side piece. Got challenged to a duel to first blood. And then Tyrion says, and then he found out the hard way why Oberyn's called the Red Viper.
So he poisoned cut him.
But it could have just been like if we're playing devil's advocate, it could have been an infection. Maybe there's no.
Nah, he poisoned. He poisoned.
It could have been poisoned though. Exactly. We don't
probably.
Know.
So I mean, yeah, that's kind of over the top. Like I'm trying to kill this guy, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I can't defend him anymore.
Yeah. So that's why
I would have thought you said it was first blood, and then he just like chopped off his head with the first cut instead of like just trying to cut him.
Yeah, first blood, but he ended up dying from it. Yeah. So that is why they ended up sending Quentin away and at such a young age. And then it sounds like the wife and Arianne's mom and dad, Doran and Melario, didn't get along. Kind of had a falling out after that.
You got to go to Planky Town.
Well, he got in Planky Town. He got spotted.
Yeah, so that's what. Yeah, so now
yeah.
Ariane has friends with Garen, because Garen's from the Planky Town, and some of his mom and I guess some of his cousins spotted Quentin in disguise with a guy that has a lazy eye, and it's known that Cletus Ironwood has a lazy eye.
Well, and we had heard before that he was dressed up as a merchant from somebody as well.
Oh, yeah, I think that's here. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he says
Garen's
it right
mother
here.
had seen him posing as a merchant. Yeah,
we had heard that before too, though, right?
maybe Ariane might have said like maybe some
I
of
think
this.
so.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they had somebody break into his room, and they broke into his box, and they found letters. And this is what Ariane really is upset about. It's not just Quentin going off on his mission, whatever this mission is, on his own. Like, this is Doran's involved, because he has letters sealed with Doran's Martell sigil, seal, wax. So she couldn't break the seals, obviously, but like it was enough for her to know that
There's got to be a way to break it and then like remelt it a little bit.
Varys has to have this figured out. Or Varys just has like a counterfeit stamp for every house in the kingdom or something.
Nah, that's doing too much. 'Cause then you need all kinds of candles and shit.
Yeah.
he just learned how to remelt the bottom wax again.
Yeah.
Restick
I don't think
it.
it's that hard. I think we can do it.
So Doran is Arya's dude, right? That other guy.
Arya's working
The
for Doran.
not crippled, but
He's
the
the
guy that has gout.
gout-ridden.
Yes, yeah.
Gout-ridden King of Dorne.
Yes. Okay. There's so many names that are very similar, and then we haven't seen any of these people in so long.
I'm telling you, it's the Tells, the Martells, and the
Tyrells.
Tyrells.
Yeah.
That's the elves. Yeah.
And like I'm just trying to make sure and reconfirm my own knowledge over and over again. So
Yeah.
Yep. But Gerald comes back and he's like, "Yo, this ain't gonna work. You're not gonna get what you want from doing this."
Yeah. And when he comes up, I think it's cool. He comes up and says, "Princess." Sir Gerald Dane stood behind her, half in starlight, half in shadow. And what's this guy go by?
Darkstar.
And he's half in starlight, half in shadow. Dark Star.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, he's also got like this like divided hairline.
Yeah, black
He
streak
seems
through his
like he's
hair.
definitely he's got this weird thing going on. where
He's super edgy.
Do you think he did this on purpose? Yeah, he walked up until he was like perfectly.
He's got like skulls all over his
Right here.
like
Yeah.
skull chains and stuff coming out of his
chain
cheeks.
hanging off of his.
Yeah.
Reaches out real far and awkward to touch her, like because he's like really awkwardly off to the side just to be perfectly half. Hey, princess, over here. Yeah.
He's just sitting by the
Lights
fire
better.
singing secondhand serenades or whatever. that thing is.
Yeah.
All right, but he's like, "Yo, you're not gonna get what you want." Like the Lannisters, I don't know if they're gonna care too much about what you're doing here.
Yeah. And again, this is when she's kind of thinking to herself, well, what you think of what I want isn't what I really want. And he says that you want the Sand Snakes freed, vengeance for Oberyn, and a taste of lion's blood. And she's like, yeah, but I really want my birthright. And then, but she doesn't say that. She's like, I want justice.
Yeah.
Right. Which again,
Whatever
I'm
that
sure she's
means.
thinking like, I want justice for myself here. Right. Like I'm being
For
robbed
sure.
of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not for Marcella.
And he's like, "Yo, you can't use, what does he say? You can't use a castle. You need to use a sword or."
A crown. Yeah. This is how you start a war, and he pulled out a sword. Something really weird in this chapter. Tell me what I'm missing here. When she's talking with Darkstar right here, aren't they talking about how Tywin's dead and Cersei's in charge?
No,
But then
no, Eris brings that news.
okay, but to me it seems like they're talking about that here, right? She's like, Darkstar says crowning Marcella is a hollow gesture. She'll never sit the throne. You won't get what you want. He says the lion isn't so easily provoked. Arianne says the lion's dead. And he's like, who knows what cub the lioness prefers? Am I wrong about this?
I have
Kyle?
a different book.
Well,
than
I
you.
think that's Joffrey. Joffrey's dead.
No, dude, I think you have a different version. That is not in mine here.
What's yours say? Check yours, Jeff.
I'm trying. The lion is not so easily provoked. This is how you start a war, not with a crown of gold, but with a blade of steel.
It just jumps to that.
Yeah, there's nothing about a kid, nothing about.
I'll read the whole thing for you. She will never sit the Iron Throne, nor will you get the war you want. The lion is not so easily provoked. Sir Gerald drew his sword. It glimmered in the starlight, sharp as lies. This is how you start a war, not with a crown of gold, but with a blade of steel.
That's crazy.
And then she says to herself, I am no murderer of children. And then out loud, put that away. Marcella is under my protection, and Sir Ares will permit no harm to come to his precious princess. You know that. And then it just kind of moves on. Yeah, so whatever happened in the version that you have, they either edited it out or they edited that in. I don't know.
But even though, I think with that line, it's talking about Joffrey being dead and Cersei maybe liking Marcella more than Tommen, is how I would take that quote.
Wait, so I'm going to read what I have. I don't think it's a spoiler. I just think it's this conversation can't take place until Ares shows up, and maybe he just shifted it around and decided to, I don't know. The lion is not so easily provoked. Next paragraph. The lion's dead. Who knows which cub the lioness prefers? Next paragraph. The one in her own den. Sir Gerald drew his sword. It glimmered in the starlight, sharp as lies. This is how you start a war, not with crowns of gold, but with a blade of steel.
I'm just hearing about Tommen and Marcella.
But exactly. But
Tommen's the one in her den. Joffrey's dead.
Exactly. Which is kind of what they kind of think
What are you
later,
talking
right?
about?
But it's just interesting to me that those two lines are not in your guys'
You were
book.
saying like they thought that was saying Tywin was dead.
I mean, it sounds like Tywin to me. The lion is
The
dead.
lion is dead. Who knows which one the lioness prefers? Which cub the lioness prefers?
I think it was Joffrey. I think that was a Joffrey thing.
But if you don't know Tywin's dead, you wouldn't assume who cares what the lioness prefers. It would be what Tywin prefers.
But again, it only matters because Joffrey's dead. If Joffrey's
That's
alive,
true.
nothing matters.
Yeah, but she clearly already knew about that.
Why?
She must have known about that before. That's why we're crowning Marcella, because she's
but
older
Tywin's
than...
not going to be king.
It doesn't
so
matter. I was just pointing out. I thought it was...
It doesn't matter because you're wrong. It's interesting that it's a different whole different line.
He must have just had the conversations out of order or something and then got edited out.
But then we get we kind of knew this guy. I don't know if you remember, but the Oakharts and Dornish people like are against each other. I didn't know if the Danes were the closest. It was probably why you sent the map, Nels, or no? I think the Oakharts are right over the mountains in the Reach part of Westeros.
Okay.
I don't think the Oakharts are on the map I was just looking at, but yeah, I think you're right. They're probably just close. Interesting though, because when they talk about what house Darkstar's from, they say he's from High Hermitage. But then later they do mention Starfall. So again, just two different like branches of Dane, it seems like, with two different, kind of like Royce's, where they have two different castles.
Yeah.
But Starfall seems to be the main one.
Does that mean he's JV Dane family?
Well, she said we need his house. Sorry.
Fall as a person?
Starfall is the
Starfall
main
is
Dane
the
castle.
Dane castle.
Okay.
But at one point they say we need him because of High Hermitage, which is like the secondary Dane castle.
Yeah, I don't know. But he's like, fuck it, I'm going to kill heirs. That's what my family does. We kill Oakharts. And
Yeah.
Ariane's like, well, I think they kill Danes too. But
And then he's like, well, speak of the devil, look who's here.
Yep.
And Ares is riding up with Marcella.
Yep. So Marcella and Aerys arrived. Everybody kneels right away and starts calling her Grace. Confuses the shit out of her.
Yeah, immediately they're right into it. And she doesn't know what the fuck's going on at all.
Queen, my queen.
She's like, what? Why are they calling me your Grace? Who are these people? Where are we? And Ariane steps up to calm her down. Don't worry, these are my friends. They want to be your friends. Like, why are they calling me your Grace? Did something happen to Tommen? Like, oh, he's fine, but he just has evil counselors. So he's trying to steal your throne. She's like, my throne? Like, no,
Yeah.
like it's Tommen. Tommen is. And she's like, Tommen is younger than you, right? And she's like,
Yeah,
well,
this
yeah.
is weird for sure. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, so shush now. Come get some olives and cheese. We have a long ride ahead of us, darling.
Is
Are
this
these people really the good people?
is
Yeah.
this Aerys dropping the ball on the plan? Like, or if she knew the whole plan, would she have revolted and not gone with him? I lean more for the latter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of dumb for Ariane to open it up right now. Let's get Marcella as far.
Yeah, let's get on our
West.
horses, get your horse watered up, and let's roll.
Yeah, like, hey, we're going on a vacation trip. Don't worry about it. Don't like. We'll tell
Yeah,
you more
but
when we get
instead
there.
They're right away. My queen.
Yeah, like right off the bat.
Your throne awaits. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she introduces everybody to Marcella. I don't know if there's anything important in the descriptions here, and else if you want to, I don't know if you want to read through them again. It's the same people we've been talking about.
Yeah, Marcella's a little weary of them.
The one she does recognize is Dane, and she
Yep.
she brings up Arthur Dane to Gerald, which later on he's like, why the fuck does everybody remember that guy? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many Danes. But
Yeah.
He was the beast.
It is funny when she introduces Garen. She's like, "This is Garen of the orphans." She's like, "His mom was my wet nurse." And Marcella's like, "I'm sorry, your mom's dead." And Garen's like, "Oh, she's not.
Yeah.
I'm an orphan of the green blood." And we kind of learn what that means a little bit later.
Yeah, it was pretty confusing to meet
Yeah.
someone. I know it's some Game of Thrones meeting. I'm not even gonna worry about it. I'll learn about it later.
Yep. And she's like, "Well, you gotta get some food. We gotta ride soon." So, and it takes her to get some food. And exactly, Darkstar's like, "Why is Arthur Dane the only one anybody ever remembers?" And this is interesting because Ares, who we just said should hate the Danes, is the one kind of defending Arthur Dane. He's like, "Well, he was a good knight," and Darkstar's like, "He had a good sword," and Ares like, "Well, and a good heart." And he's like, "Well, can we go?" And then Ares is like, "Can we go talk alone?" That's kind of the end of that conversation.
Ares does kind of have that like knightly, like Brienne-ish.
He's like almost too naive. Yeah.
yeah.
He's in the fraternity.
Too naive for this world,
Any night's
kinda.
a good night.
Yeah.
So he definitely has that side to him where he, wants to believe the best in everybody and whatnot. So It makes sense that he's like, oh well, he was a knight, and he fought well, and he was a member of the Kingsguard. We're all good. And
yeah, especially the Kingsguard, because in the last chapter there was a time when they're talking about like, oh, Kingsguard who broke their vows, and Ariane's like, what about Lewin Martell, who was in the Kingsguard with Arthur Dane? And Ares like, oh yeah, he was a really good knight, never broke his vows. And Ariane's like, well, he had a paramour, like
except for the girl.
Everyone knew it. Yeah. So again, he's like, I agree with you, Kyle. I think that's kind of showing the same type of thing there.
So Ares and Ariane go off for a little side combo into the ruins. We learn a couple different things here. Marcella followed pretty willingly because she was told by Tyrion to trust Ares, and whatever he's doing is to protect you. Yep. So she bailed on Trystane and Sunspear is where they were, right?
Yep.
And big shocker for Ariane is that Tywin is dead.
Yep. And now Cersei's in charge. Ariane thinks about this for a second. She's like, that's probably good for us, right?
That.
Like, they'll get used to a woman on the throne being in charge. That'll make it easier when we try and... I mean, I think it is interesting, right? Just like, how does Cersei, if she's trying to rule... It seems like this probably isn't going to go... Well, I don't know. It's kind of interesting, right? Because at the end, Marcella's bleeding, right? So what's going to happen with that? Like, kind of like what Darkstar's saying here. You don't get a war with a crown. You get it with blood. At the end, there's a part where Marcella's like holding her face and there's blood coming down. So we don't know what happened there, but she's bleeding. So this might not go well.
Or is it...
Let's keep... Yeah, we'll get there.
Sprayed blood.
We'll get there, but like, yeah, again, maybe who knows? Maybe my copy has some extra paragraphs in it.
You got an extra line.
But
yeah, but I do think it's interesting. Like, I don't know if they're gonna get used to it, but because Tommen is still right now the image on the throne, right? Even if Cersei is the queen regent, like everybody understands that. Like, all right, you're a placeholder type of thing. You're not. It can't be permanent.
I think what Nelson was saying is like, how can Cersei be like, well, the woman doesn't have right to the throne when she's the queen herself.
No, I agree, but I think because it's an understanding that you're a placeholder.
Yeah. Or with Cersei, who we've heard before, kind of like didn't like how when her and Jaime were twins, she would dress up as Jaime and get treated differently. Maybe she would be like, you know what, this is a good chance to change how things go. Like, what does she give a fuck if Marcella's queen and instead of Tommen, she still gets to be in charge for the most part, and like all it really changes is, who knows if it even helps Ariane with her thing, but like,
it could change who's loyal to you.
That's
at
true.
A time where there's still pretender kings out there.
That's true. Dance to the Dragon style. But yeah, just that's an interesting side too. Is like she could just be on the same side.
Yeah. Aerys tries to get a little diddle in. Didn't work.
Yeah, a few times.
And she's like, all right, did you guys get out without a problem? And Trystane was the one problem because it sounds like he's already had the chicken pox and
red spots. Game of Thrones word.
Chicken pox.
Chicken pox, probably. Yeah. Only children can get. Anyone can get it. You can only get it once, and it's only really fatal if you get it later in life in adulthood. Trystane has already got it, so he's immune.
Is that true for chicken pox?
It can be worse, fatal? I think, when you're an adult. I think really? It can be fatal for sure. Yeah.
I thought it was worse for like a baby to get it. But
no.
It's yeah. Anything's like that super young and super old, right?
Super
like
young,
that's
super old. Super old makes sense.
I thought they used to have chickenpox parties where like when one baby would get chickenpox, all the babies in the town would bring their baby over to get it.
I think that is true. Actually, my
I don't
wife.
know if they were babies though.
Yeah.
It's like little like
kids.
3 or 4 year olds. Yeah.
I don't know if Danielle's still up, but Danielle, it literally just got brought up a week ago that she got chickenpox, and they were still sending her to school unknowingly, maybe knowingly, but like didn't tell the school.
Yeah.
And the one parent was like, "No, like hang out with my kid because I don't know,
let's get that out of the system."
Like that.
Yeah. So it seems like that's the deal. So they have Marcella's handmaiden, Marcella's double. We find out her later her name's Rosamund. And
cousin.
We find out that Tyrion, I guess we kind of knew this. It makes sense. He was the hand at the time, but he's the one that was doing all this. They're like, Aerys says like, oh yeah, she came and just followed me without asking any questions. This is why she was able to get here without knowing anything about what was going on, because Tyrion said, do whatever Aerys says, it's to protect you. And she just blindly listens to me now. And I think maybe that's why, maybe not, but maybe that's why she's like, what happened to Tyrion after he killed Tywin? She's like, maybe that's why they're kind of interested in Tyrion's, because like he did, I don't know, maybe not. Just because they've heard a lot about him. Maybe just because it's interesting gossip.
Yeah, I think more so that.
So, yeah, Trystane, the chickenpox didn't scare him away because he's already had it. But Maester Maester Caeliot.
He must be old.
Is older, and he hasn't had it. And Arianne knew this because he couldn't come see her when she had it when she was a kid. Kind of smart by her. She also was like, we should have just gone with grayscale. That would have kept Tristane away.
I mean, that's too severe.
That's way too severe. And she seems to think like that would have kept Tristane away, but maybe not the Maester. Like they would have maybe sent the Maester to like just go in and be really careful about it. Like yeah, especially if it's a princess, you're not just gonna like Shireen. You're not just gonna like.
All right, chalk her up. She's
says Shireen's around everybody.
Yeah, if it's a commoner or a peasant, you're like, yeah, grayscale, not worth it. But if it's a princess, you got to at least give it a checkup, right? Just wear some rubber gloves or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to try to do whatever they did to Shireen, right? Like they stopped it. Like go save this girl.
They did something. So this handmaid is not like a highborn. She's a highborn, but she's maybe even not. She's not a high up Lannister. She's like low.
She's a cousin. She's a Lanny.
She's from Lannisport.
Yeah, but it says like Tyrion pretty much dug deep. He went way below people that should have been a handmaid way before this girl just to get someone that looked like her. And he's like, well, is it convincing? And he's like, she's got all this shit on her face, like not even the pox, but like they gave her some like ointment to smear on it. And he's like, yeah, it could even fool me. So he should be fine.
Oatmeal ointment. Yeah.
Yep, and then there's a night holding spot for Aerys Rolder. He's pretty tall, not as tall, and who knows?
Just wear my armor, put the visor down. Nobody will notice how tall you are if you're not standing next to somebody.
And Aerys doesn't even know where they're heading. I think that was that's the other thing. She should have what's it called? What'd they do with the nuclear bomb? What's it called?
Manhattan Project, compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize. She just didn't compartmentalize enough.
Yeah. Well, she did a little bit with Ares, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess maybe the friends.
Not with the people that mattered.
She's like, I already fucked you. You served your purpose. The queen's here. I don't really need you anymore. Yeah. It's kind of where she, again, not quite. I think she does like the guy.
Keep your sword on the side, but stop asking questions.
Exactly. But that's kind of the vibe.
I think it's kind of crazy because like he seemed like what would be one of like the likely suspects, right? Like he was kind of the least involved with this whole situation, and then he just gives his life like immediately. So then it's like, okay, I guess he didn't.
You mean likely subjects for who told?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to tell Hotal like, hey, we're running away. Go set up shop at destination when he doesn't know destination.
True.
It's also true. That kind of proves that it wasn't at least Ares, because that I was almost going to think like, could Ares have done both, been the one that told and sacrificed his life, because he was kind of having this little bit like, my honor, I've ruined my honor as a Kingsguard for dishonoring my vow in the last chapter. Could he have been like this is the way to go out, suicide type thing? But I think what you guys just said proves, what you just said, that he doesn't know where they're going, kind of proves no, unless he's like, hey, we're gonna crown Marcella, and Doran's smart enough to figure out what step one is, but which doesn't seem that far of a shot. Like, sounds like riding through the desert sucks. So if I was Doran, I would guess first step is the one river through Doran.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they head out.
Yeah. So they start heading southwest.
Yep. And they go by night because it's
way too hot.
Obviously not as hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So they start riding southwest by night. Arianne did like that her party was 7 people. That was a good omen from the gods.
Yeah. Yep. Great omen.
And she did mention like she didn't want to bring more people. Garen was like, yo, let's bring more people. Maybe it was Dre. Let's bring more swords. And her dad had taught her to be cautious and not let too many people know about the plan.
Yeah. She's like, once my plan works, I want him to be treated nice. I'll send him to the water gardens. He'll live out his days in peace. And maybe I'll send Quentin there too, which is like, again, she's saying like it's going to be peaceful, but she's also clearly hinting that like it's basically a prison at the same time. Like, you're not allowed to leave once I send you there. So I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah, she's getting a little ahead of herself.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the theme, is like she's in over her head. She doesn't realize this isn't like a game. She kind of I don't even know what to call it, but it's like rich girl, like royalty syndrome.
Trivializes. She's trivializing the whole situation and what's going on, and it's like, oh yeah, we can just crown her and we'll take her here and this will go.
And maybe doesn't even like realize the repercussions of her actions. Like, this is she's playing with like a war here, right? Like,
the gravity
like thousands
of the
of
situation
people could die from what you're doing, right? And I don't think to her it's her playing with her friends. Right, yeah. I don't think
I'm not gonna downgrade it to just playing with, like, she's playing dress up in the backyard. Like,
I think she's treating it closer to that than what it really is.
No, I disagree. She's trying to fight for a throne. Maybe she doesn't understand. Maybe she's not the best game player. Maybe, like, if we think about it as the Savasi game. She's lining up her shits behind the mountain every time, like you're saying. She just hasn't learned enough to actually put a good effort at it. But to say she's just playing, fuck around time with her friends, I don't think is fair.
I'm not saying that's what I think. What she's doing is very serious, but she's treating it too much like a game with her friends, and not
I just
or a game of Cybox, not like a game of lives it's a game. Here.
I don't believe that. Okay. I don't think she doesn't think that there's any consequences. I think she thinks that she's just gonna win or like it's gonna work. She just she hasn't thought about her plan not working, right?
The consequences.
But it's not like that doesn't mean she's playing a game. She just is overly confident in her plan.
That's fair. She's kind of naive in how this works. She just thinks everything's gonna go right. Yeah, I think there's a slight nuance there, but I think there's some crossover too. But yeah,
I just don't think she's fucking around. All right, I lost. Take me home. She's obviously very emotional at the end because the plan didn't work and she hadn't thought that through.
That's fair. That's fair. And I guess I was going to say, what happens next for her? Does she just get a slap on the wrist and, that's it? But, this could have ended up in people dying. But I guess to that point, that's not a fair judgment because if this ever really, and it did end with people dying. I mean, Ares died. But if it ever ended in, real war where lots of people died, she would probably be just as at much risk of dying as anybody else. So it's not like she's just throwing other people's lives away. I would argue she's throwing herself as just as much risk as everybody else. But
yeah. I mean, it's her shot, right? But she's got too much confidence. I would say she's with the sand snakes. Once they're out, we got it. Dorn does.
That's fair. Which
fair.
Is she does.
All right, you got 6. I don't know how many there are. A dozen, maybe dozen sand snakes.
Yeah.
Are you really in that much control of Dorn? I don't know. I don't know just like we don't know if the grandfather sand snake's going to let him in the castle doors. If they get there, but. And then she's like, "All right, if the Ironwoods are fighting us, I'll just send Darkstar. He'll take care of them."
Yeah, exactly. Let's go all the Ironwoods. Okay. So the next thing I have is they start getting on talking about the orphans. Yeah. Marcella's tired. She wants to stop.
I don't know if she tells us or tells everybody else, but they're going to meet Garen's people
at the Green
at the Green Water. So that's how we get on that topic. I really don't. I didn't understand this too much. I was like, the Roinar, is that here? Or is that the river they're going up? What's going on? I know they always say in their titles, right? They are the Roinar, right?
Yeah. Isn't that? I thought was that north of the wall we were hearing that the Roinar of, or is that these people down here?
It's the king adds it to
okay
the something of the first man. I'm the blah
the
blah the Roinar. I'm the yada yada yada.
All right, map time. What's up with the Roin? Why do they call it? I guess first thing on here, we got Mir, Tyros, Lice, and we have Volantis. So Westeros is right to the left. These are step zones. Dorne basically starts right off the map to the left here. Volantis is where we hear that the Golden Company are going to, right? So other way. This is the Roin, basically this massive river that runs through the entire continent of Essos. Again, this is still to the western part of Essos. The Dothraki Sea is to the right of this.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Okay.
Yeah, still kind of near all the cities. But yeah, basically there used to be a massive population here, and dragons made that not as massive. A lot of them left with Nymeria, ended up in Dorne. When that happened, they burned all their ships, right? I feel like this is a real history story, or at least a fake one, right? I feel like this is a coach's, Jeff, you should know this. This is a coach's story, right? Burn the ships. We're not going back unless we win.
That's the first thing I thought. It was so many people have made that their slogans of their season, right? We're not turning back.
Burn
and I think it's from a historical story that I don't think is actually true. It's like Troy or something where they showed up at all the Achaeans showed up at Troy and they all burned their ships. I don't think it's not that one.
I think it was more Plymouth meeting times. They were freezing. The story I was told, which was by a coach, was they got here, or it was just cold here and they didn't have much, and they were look, we can either burn the ship for firewood and stay warm, or we can turn around and go back. And they were fuck it, burn the ships. And that's
okay. Yeah. So whatever that is, it's a known story, right, in our culture. So I think George is playing on that with Nymeria here, right?
I would agree.
Yeah. So what the deal is, these were big river people. The culture was river culture. They land in Dorne. It's a fucking desert. They burn the ships. Some of them were no, we don't want to be desert people. We still want to be river people. So they started a culture on the Green Blood, which is this really shitty river in Dorne, which is nowhere near as big as the Roin. Arianne says it's not even close to as big as the Mander, which is another river she's seen in Westeros. But they basically are the orphans of the river, because they're this old culture. Their god was the Mother Roin, which was basically the river. They worshipped like a river
It's like
god
Mother
or the
Earth.
river
Yeah,
itself.
it's like saying Mother Earth. Yeah.
So now that they're separated from, well, it's the river specifically, because now they're separated from their mother river Roin. They're the orphans, right? And the orphans of the green blood, because the green blood is what they call this river now. So that's where the whole orphans term comes from, is that they're separated from their mother Roin, which was like their god. They prayed to the river. They were
river. I just meant like putting mother before it and personifying this natural phenomenon, right? It's
and to that point, Ares even says, "Wait, I thought that they had a turtle god." And they're like, well, that was like a lesser god. The old man of the river was a lesser god whose dominion was under the waters. And basically he was a spawn of the mother. So exactly, this turtle god that seems very nature god. And George loves turtles. He always wears a turtle hat.
Is it a turtle hat?
Yeah, a little hat with a turtle on it. It's like his most famous hat. He's a big it's known that George likes turtles.
All right. Cool history. I didn't understand that. Thank you for clearing that up, Nels. So I don't know how did they get from, my notes kind of go quickly from the story of the Roinar to them playing the game. So
I don't have anything. I don't have the transition either.
So she just beats the shit out of Tristane and Syvas. Maybe that means she's smarter or can strategize better than him, or maybe she is good. Maybe she's a good candidate. They're both young, but like
Ares does kind of talk her up, but he's like, it's like kind of like a dad hyping up his kid. Like, okay, I feel like rose-colored glasses a little bit. So
I mean, is nobody going to tell Tristane to try something new? Like, how stupid? Like, kind of stupid, Tristane. Like, you keep getting your ass kicked by this dragon. Like, change.
Yeah, and again, I think we might have spoiled Kyle on this game a little bit. Again, I don't know if we've ever heard. We didn't hear about like too much of it before, but here we hear that like, oh, he always sets up his pieces the same. He has his elephant. He has his mountains in the front and his elephant in the passes. So I always just eat his elephants with my dragons, is like what Marcella says, like basically happens every time they play together is. So I think it's kind of interesting we hear how the game works a little bit.
Well, I think this is also kind of like, I don't know, maybe this is me my turn to read too much into it, but her being like, you guys always are doing the same old tired thing. Like, it's easy to read, right? Like,
yeah, I don't mind that.
You're easy to counter. Like, it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of me reading it with the backwards knowledge of knowing that they get countered at the end of this. But
yeah, that's a good point. So I guess kind of earlier when we were saying, could Ares have been the one that told? And we said no, because he didn't know where they were going, so he couldn't have said step 2. Kind of your point is like, well, it's obvious. Like you're kind of making your next move pretty obvious, just like Tristane is. Yeah, so it could be symbolism for that. I think the whole reason they bring up Syvas here, which again doesn't end up really seeming to matter, is to show at one point they're like, does your handmaid play Syvas too?
Yeah, that's right here.
Like, well, right here. But she sucks, or no, she doesn't, or whatever, right? But to me, it's like, well, with Tristane, you're sick. Right? What else are you going to do? You're at your bed. He's going to come in and be like, oh, I hope you're okay. You want to play Syvas? And then he's going to start mopping the floor with, what's her name? Rosamund? It's like, wait a minute.
That makes you kind of think, did he come by? Did Rosamund, like, try to hold it off? And, like, I don't know what she knew. I would assume she doesn't know much other than, hey, you're playing Marcella right now.
Yeah, don't let anybody know who you are.
They're also friends, right? It's not like, that's so obvious. Like, you would realize if your friend just was replaced with another person, right?
Well, unless, again, Ares said she did have the whole shit on her face. But yeah, you think with like voices and stuff like that.
But like, if fucking Paste Face Nelson was on next week's episode of the podcast, I think I would notice pretty quickly that it wasn't you.
And also, like, I'm guessing most of the time when Tristane's hanging out with Marcella, maybe not most, but some of the time when Tristane's hanging out with Marcella, Rosamund is also there.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like he doesn't
he
know
knows this girl, yeah.
But these two look similar. Like,
yeah,
they look similar enough that people they played this before, right? Like, that's what they get into next. Is like, they've been switching places a little bit and gotten away with it. They did it on the ship when they were going to Bravos, and
but they weren't like their friends at this point, right? Like,
sure, Tristane again. That's why probably Tristane was the problem, like they mentioned earlier. Like he'd be the one that probably would find out.
Yep.
But yeah, so they weren't as far along as they wanted to be, and the sun was coming up, and she wanted to pretty much be on the river by sunup, right? And Gerald's like, "Yo, we got to get going. Like, let me set the pace. It's about to get hot as shit up in here." They all shield up except Eris. He's kind of an idiot. Like, why would you not?
Yeah, doesn't have the veil. Not ready for the weather.
Yeah, ill prepared.
I feel it's kind of like a knightly pride thing.
Stupid.
Like, yeah. I mean, I agree. It's stupid. But that's probably
definitely
where
him
he's
being
coming from.
Aries.
Yeah, I'm too tough.
Especially because he hates the Dornish. It's like I'm not gonna cave to your Dornish ways.
There's a reason, right? There's a reason.
Yeah, well, exactly. There's a reason they all wear veils and silks and shit like that,
and maybe
chainmail.
not the silver armor because you're about to roast in it.
Yeah,
but so he's sweating hard. They get it was a cool little story about the sun and the spear, right? The sun is as cool of a weapon, or as good as a weapon, maybe even deadlier than the spear for the Dorn. People have just died trying to march on them, which
yeah. Well, and we talked about this before because when Oberyn is fighting the mountain, he has like a little tiny shield and his spear, and his shield looks like a sun, and he points the shield to reflect the sun into the mountain's eyes before he
glares him out.
So he actually does use the sun and spear, which again I never realized till this reread through. I think that's one of the coolest things that I ever realized in this book, that he actually uses the sun and spear as his like weapons in the fight. So that's what that made me think of. But yeah, exactly.
And then slowly they get to some better land, right? Some trees start popping up, some grass, and Garen gets hyped because the river's coming up, and he runs off ahead, yells, and next step would be she's just thinking to herself like, once we get to the green water, smooth sailing as far as we can go, and then we keep on rolling, and I'll get to prepare Marcella about our plan on the floats.
Yeah, so I'll throw the map in here. You guys don't really have to look at it. The gist is, because the plan doesn't really happen, but the gist is they're gonna get to this river, pretty much near the mouth of the river, and take the river to the west. And if you look, the river ends. I think she says it's at the river ends actually a little bit past Vaith, but she's basically like, we'll take it past Vaith to where we can't take the boat anymore. From there, we're gonna have to cross the sands, and at that point, it does get just like fucking nothing but sand if you look at the map. And they're like, we're gonna need help from the Hellholt and Sandstone. And they're like, at the Hellholt, that's where we have Grandpa Sand, basically.
That's where we're gonna do the crowning, right?
Exactly, because the lord of that castle is the father of Oberyn's number one paramour, Ilaria Sand. Exactly. She was the mother of 4 of the Sand Snakes, so this guy should, again, Arian's assuming he's invested. I don't know if she has any, again, this is kind of what makes me think she's more playing games than anything else.
I would say Ilaria is a better bet than the grandfather, right? And maybe she has some influence on him.
Yeah, that's true. If she's there, I don't even know if we know she's there, but that's true. It doesn't matter because of where this ends up. But.
Yeah, we don't.
They don't make it. Yeah. Spoiler alert. They don't make it.
So they get to the ship. Right, and there's no crew on board. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
Hello, like Nimble Dick, right?
Come out.
Yep.
And Hota with just a big ass axe.
Yeah, he steps right out. This is cool because Hota, not cool, but Hota in his only chapter I think so far, right? He thinks about Ares. We're gonna fight one day, and when that day comes, it's gonna suck to be Ares.
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Suck to be Ares, yeah. Like my axe is gonna fuck this boy up. And to be fair, I would have preferred a more fair fight.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
like Ares is fucked up by the time he gets there, but he goes out like a champ.
He took a couple with him.
Yeah, he kind of goes out like a champ, right?
He is stupid though.
Real dumb.
He didn't have to.
Which again kind of makes me think, could this have been like a
suicide?
Was suicided?
Yeah.
Could he have been the one that kind of ratted, right? But I think what you pointed out, that he didn't know where they were going, it's not a foolproof he didn't do it, but yeah.
The ratting part doesn't make sense, but I can see him coming to like, all right, well, fuck it, we lost. Like, they're not gonna like me at King's Landing either. Like, once King's Landing hears about this, like, they might take me anyway. Like, let me just go out.
Well, exactly.
Maybe they'll sing a song about the way I protected Marcella in this moment. But
yeah, I'm sure he's thought about like at what point in this, like if this goes, like you're saying, I feel like what you're saying is exactly like, if this goes to shit too early, I can't just be like, oops, sorry, like I didn't mean it. Like that's not gonna go over well with the Dornish. It's not gonna go over well with Cersei. Like I'm fucked at that point. So fuck it. This is my only option, right? Yeah. Like Marcella is queen now for me. That or nothing, right?
So you think he was like, I'm a dead man either way. I might as well go out here.
Yeah. Well, and it's everyone. Fair. The other thing is, the way it's written too is everyone's like, no, don't do it. Put your sword down. And he looks at Arianne, And Ariane's like, I wanted to yell no, but the word caught in my throat. So like the way I read this is like it's a slow motion. He looks at the person who's the way he sees it in charge. Like, should I put my sword down? And she doesn't give him the put your sword down.
I think you could see it on her face.
Because I think in her mind she's thinking the same thing he is. Like,
go kill yourself.
This is You've
like past the point of no return already.
We have a chance. Like it can. I don't know. I feel like it's not. This is gonna sound cold. I don't think she thinks it in a this cold of a way. But I think the way she's thinking about it is like it's worth the shot. You know what I mean? Like
what shot?
Fuck it. That Ares somehow goes up there and kills Aereo, and they get away with this.
No, she knows it's foolish. She says, "I've never seen a bigger fool."
She looks at him and he doesn't say no.
Maybe she's like, "All right, that's one loose end of my life that like I don't have to keep making him like me." It goes back to like how much did she really like him? Like she liked him enough. Maybe not. She was never gonna marry him, right? Like he was a side piece.
Well, but she told him she was gonna marry him. That was how we got him on board. Is hey, once we crown Marcella, she can change the rules of the Kingsguard and we can be together.
Again, we can argue if she meant it or not.
Well, and I think what you're saying is a really good point. Is how much did she really like him? How much was she playing him? Is part of this. But I think the other part is kind of what I was saying at the beginning about like she's lying to herself about this too. Like she wants to be in charge, right? Like it's not like I think you're right that she realizes like the Marcella thing is fucked, but she's like, but that means that I'm not going to be like the way she's equating that to I'm giving up my throne too. And fuck it, Ares. You know what? Like,
go win me, Ares.
Go win me my throne. That sounds cold, but I don't think I'm.
It was just impossible. She knows Hota, right? Like, even if it was a fair 1v1, he had a dozen men with him.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find the quote real quick. I didn't write the quote down, but don't do it, Sir Ares. Dre urged. We are taken, sir. Ariane might have called out. Your death will not free us. If you love your princess, yield. And I think what she said, if you love your princess here, she's thinking if you love Marcella, not if you love me, right? I think if you love Marcella, yield. If you love me, keep. And she doesn't say that, but that's how I read this. So if you love your princess, yield. But when she tried to speak, the words caught her in her throat. Sir Ares Oakheart gave her one last longing look, then put his golden spurs into his horse and charged. He rode headlong for the pole boat, his white cloak streaming behind him. Ariane Martell had never seen anything half so gallant or so stupid. No, she shrieked, but she had found her tongue too late. So
yeah, I'll just say I don't think she. Maybe she did. I didn't read it as she said. She didn't say anything because she wanted him to go. I think she was still shocked that the turntables had turned. And
for sure, yeah, she was tongue tied.
Like, oh fuck, like, what do you like? What's this dumbass about to do? How did this happen? You know, and then it's like, oh fuck, there he goes, and I didn't say anything.
That's fair, and I think that's all. I think that's very possible. I think there's a hint that what I was saying is also possible. I think what you're saying though, kind of leans more into that she was treating this more of a game. Like again, she wasn't thinking about like anything could go wrong. Like everyone else is saying Ares no. Like they were ready for this shit to go wrong immediately. Dre's sword belt's already unbuckled and on the ground.
I don't want to stay on it. Not thinking through the consequences. I don't think you're just chalking it up as a game. I think she understood that it was a real deal. Like obviously everything was going to be real. Like a war would be started because of what she was going to do. She just wasn't ready for it to start on the beach of the green water. So
okay.
I also don't know that she was ready for all that entails, right? Like she thought she was ready for that.
Correct. I agree.
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, anything about this fight? I don't have any quotes for anything. He pretty much rides up the gangplank. He gets two guys.
It's pretty dope. Good job.
He like charges, getting shot the whole time.
He gets shot by multiple arrows. His horse too. I don't think we ever get a name for his horse, but his horse is taking spears and arrows and keeps going.
Pretty athletic. He hopped off the horse as it was falling.
Kinda. He ends up on his. He doesn't get crushed by the horse, but he is on his knees, and then he like looks up, and that's when Aereo is about.
Out of spurs.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to jump off a horse and land on my knees. I'm
most people are getting crushed.
Ned. That's what happened to Ned. That's how he got a broken leg. Like that's how Ned got his broken leg in book 1.
Well, yeah, and then Aereo just takes him out. Bullshit.
I thought Hota would have let him get up and.
Well, I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like he goes for his whole arm at the shoulder with the first thing, and then he does like a little twirl, and his head goes flying. Like
I don't understand really the angle of the axe to do that. right in from the side through the shoulder.
Well, I'm thinking probably straight down through the shoulder, and he's probably like sitting up on his knees, and then just
swing
horizontal through like a spinning horizontal through the head.
Yeah,
and his head goes flying off the pole boat like
into the water.
Into the water. Yeah, so
that's gotta I want to sharpen my kitchen knives so bad because like they're just dull, like they don't cut a fucking onion. Clean. And this dude's just chopping through shoulders. Like, how sharp is that thing?
I mean,
well, again, when we read his chapter, he when he was on his free time, all he's doing is sharpening that shit, and he sleeps. Yeah. So,
long story short, I'm buying myself a knife sharpener. That shit's about to be sharp.
Yeah.
Kicking the wife and kids out and just gonna sharpen your knives.
I'm just honing and it's got to be in the dark too. You just gotta like at candlelight. You gotta hone your knives.
Yeah, make you feel more Game of Thronesy. Yeah. Arianne found herself on the ground. Yeah, so maybe this is where I should look at what the quote says. So I think this is where we see Marcella.
Your quote might be different.
My book was the same as your guys. My iPad on my iBook was, and that's weird because you think you could just update an iBook whenever you want.
Yeah, editors are sleeping.
Let's just read the last page here.
Arianne did not remember climbing from her horse. Perhaps she'd fallen. She did not remember that either. Yet she found herself on her hands and feet in the sand, shaking and sobbing and retching up her supper. No, was all that she could think. No, no one was to be hurt. It was all planned. I was so careful. She heard Hotah roar.
After him! He must not escape! After him!
Marcella was on the ground, wailing, shaking, her pale face in her hands, blood streaming through her fingers. Arianne did not understand. Men were scrambling onto horses, whilst others swarmed over her and her companions, but none of it made sense. She had fallen into a dream, some terrible red nightmare. This could not be real. I will wake soon, and laugh at my night terrors. When they sought to bind her hands behind her back, she did not resist. One of the guardsmen jerked her to her feet. He wore her father's colors. Another bent and seized the throwing knife inside her boot, a gift from her cousin Lady Nim. Hotah took it from the man and frowned at it.
The prince said I must bring you back to Sunspear,
he announced. His cheeks and brow were freckled with the blood of Eris Oakheart.
I am sorry, little princess.
Arianne raised a tear-streaked face.
How could he know?
She asked the captain.
I was so careful. How could he know?
Someone told.
Hotah shrugged.
Someone always tells.
End scene.
So yeah, I guess two interesting things here. They're yelling after him. He must not escape after him. And Marcella's has her hands on her face, bleeding.
What are your thoughts, Kyle?
I mean, I guess somebody tried to kill her, so it was probably Dark Star, I guess, tried to kill Marcella. Start the war. He wants to start the war. Maybe he's trying to start the war.
He did say that earlier.
Trying to get his name out there. Everybody always remembers his cousin or whatever, not him. There you go.
I like it.
That's all I got. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Well, and to Jeff's point, he did say that. He's like, you don't get a war with a crown, you get a war with a sword. A war with a sword.
I don't think you need to apologize.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Pretty good context clues by you.
I guess the only other thing is who told?
Who told?
I mean, probably him then. He was trying to get him killed.
Ooh.
There you go. That gives him an excuse to get the action going.
I like that.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Cool. We'll see Kyle in the next one for... Do you see it, Kyle?
Arya.
Arya 2.
Goat.
Bravo's time. We'll see Kyle in that one. We'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Thanks for listening.
Bye, Kyle.
Bye-bye.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
See you on the next one for Arya 2. Now, on to the spoiler section. Jeff, what we got?
Darkstar obviously cut her.
That's the only thing I don't really... I didn't look up.
You don't think it was Darkstar?
Well, no, I think that's the main... Like, Kyle's theory, I think, is the main, what everybody thought, like, surface level.
Do you know anything more after this?
I know there's a lot of theories about what actually happened, but I don't.
We have a lot of
off the top of my head.
Arianne chapters, right? Like, I remember Arianne being in the tower.
Yeah, the next one is Princess in the Tower. She gets locked in the tower.
Yeah.
I think there might be one after that, or I don't know, maybe the one after that. I'm thinking there's another area or two chapters, so we get a few door and stuff. I don't remember exactly which one's which, but yeah, she gets locked in the tower. And then basically Doran, at the end of this book, Doran explains all the Quentin stuff to her. And then we get Quentin chapters.
Yeah. Okay. So him being a Dane, I didn't remember.
Gerald Dane, Darkstar.
Darkstar being a Dane, I did not recall.
Yep. So people think Darkstar is an invention George made because of the 5-year time gap. What do I mean by that?
Dude, what?
I've definitely told you this before. George originally intended for there to be a 5-year time gap or time jump between the end of Storm of Swords and Feast for Crows. Because just think about where a lot of characters are.
I hate that, though. I absolutely hate that.
Bran's getting to Bloodraven. Arya's getting to the Faceless Men. Sansa's getting to the Eyrie with Littlefinger.
And Sansa just sits there for 5 years? So, like,
and
it doesn't make
learns from
sense.
Littlefinger or whatever, right? Like
For 5 years? For 5 fucking years?
So George said the reason he couldn't end up doing it is because he thinks he could have made it work with everybody. Like Theon gets tortured for 5 years.
Danny rules over there for 5 years?
Danny
like, why
rules
would...
in Marine for 5, and that's probably his biggest problem. Is now he has to speed that shit up. The thing he said he couldn't make work for 5 years is Cersei. He said there's no way Cersei can just get
'cause
King's
Tommen-
Landing by for 5
Tommen would
years
be-
without everything going to shit.
Well, Tommen would be close to, like, 14 then, too, right? Like, he would actually be...
Yeah, so we don't have to go too much deeper into the 5-year time gap. But the point here is that we had to invent Gerald Dane because that didn't happen.
Okay.
So there's another
Oh,
Dane.
I thought you meant Darkstar. His sword was an invention. I'm like,
No.
I don't know what the fuck's he doing with
Darkstar
that. Chopping
himself
down a glass candle.
is an invention because there's another Dane that in Storm of Swords is about 5 years younger. People think Darkstar is going to go steal Dawn, and that's
who's
how
the
that's
other
going to
Dane?
get into play. The other one is the one Arya was with, Edric Dane,
Yeah. Where was he?
Ned Dane. He was in the Brotherhood Without Banners.
Right.
He was Milk Brothers with Jon.
But he doesn't have Dawn.
Well, if there was a 5-year time gap, he would have gone from being like Arya's age to being Jon's age. And people
Wait, I thought Dawn was lost.
Dawn's at Starfall. The way the Sword of the Morning works is the Sword of the Morning gets Dawn, but the Sword of the Morning isn't just like, it's not like the Lord of Winterfell.
It's the best Dane.
It's not the best Dane. It's not just whoever is the best Dane gets it. It's like you have to be worthy.
That's the best Dane. What are you talking about?
No.
You're going through like legitimacy of like passing it down. I'm
telling you what we hear. We hear that Dawn is not always wielded. It's only wielded when there's a Dane that's worthy of the title Sword of the Morning.
It's like Thor's hammer.
Exactly. So Arthur Dane, whatever, he was worthy of the title. So here, one of the things that Marcella asked Gerald Dane is, "Are you Sword of the Morning?" He's like, "No, I'm of the night. They call me Darkstar." But again, that's basically saying, "Are you okay?" So you're a Dane, but are you?
Yeah.
Like the
I get it.
badass Dane. So I think the thought is Dawn is just hanging on a wall at Starfall or in like a locked up room somewhere until. And again, we don't know, like, is it the Lord of Starfall who gets to claim someone worthy? Can they claim themselves worthy? How does that work?
Yeah.
Do you have to be a Dane? I think some of these things we don't know answers on, and I don't even know when we learn the rest of this. It might be in like World of Ice and Fire or something, which is probably just means subject to change at this point. But the thought is that's what's going on. Dawn is hanging up on the wall at Starfall right now, and after this point, people are sent out after Darkstar to capture him because he is the one accused of this.
Yeah.
And people think he's basically going to go steal Dawn, and that's how Dawn gets into the mix. And then
I just feel like Dawn would have been stolen by now. Like,
from
just chill there. Somebody would have taken it.
Well,
like,
I think the idea is they're not going to let anybody into near Dawn. But if you're a Dane, maybe you have a better shot. Yeah.
Hey, can I just go in there and look at it?
Yeah, let me just do a quick Google, see.
There was a lot of Dawn references with Darkstar, though. Or like...
So I know some of the theories about this is, I think one of the theories is, did Ares actually bring Marcella on this mission? Or is this Rosamund?
It's good. That's a good thought that I didn't even think of.
Because the only person who might even know that is Arianne. Arianne's the only one that might notice if this wasn't actually Marcella because she's met her before. But probably not enough to... Like, what Marcella says is people who don't know us well. That's what Marcella says, which to me,
but
that's
they've been
Arianne.
in since they've been probably eating together and whatnot.
That's fair. So, yeah, I don't think it's
I think it's a cool thought, and I don't mind thinking it, but
yeah,
I don't know how long the legs are on this idea.
I think that's one of the thoughts. I know there are other theories about this. Let me just do a quick Google. Fake Stella. I'm guessing this is the one that I was just talking about.
It sounds like what you're... Sounds like your theory.
This one, and it's probably this. Yeah, this says there's a theory by Preston Jacobs that the girl who was cut in Dorne on the way to King's Landing is not the real Marcella, but Rosamund, her double. I think the idea behind it would be Aerys was trying to go out again. He soiled his cloak. He wants to go out a night, switches the children, and in doing so,
Actually protected Marcella.
yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, maybe I'll do a little look. I'll do some looking into that. We'll talk about that more in the next Ariane chapter. I was a little rushed on this one, so didn't get as much notes as I wanted.
Yeah.
But.
But again, like, all right, so Marcella's not cut. Like, I don't think Marcella being cut is the biggest.
Well,
like,
what's interesting
okay.
about this is at where we're at the end of Feast of Crows, Dance of Dragons, they still don't know about Marcella being cut in King's Landing.
Okay.
Aerys is dead. I don't know if they even know about that either. Balon Swan is being sent down. Balon Swan has just arrived, and I think they might have told Balon Swan that Aerys and Marcella are alive at the Water Gardens, and they're like gonna take him there, and they're like kind of figuring out like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna kill this guy, or are we gonna like explain what happened and hope that he's chill?
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, there was just a bunch of dawns. I don't have anything.
Well, did they mention Dawn a lot? I didn't even take any Dawn.
Well, it was just the
specifically
sun
down.
came up, right?
The sun
So,
came
like,
up, yeah.
It was more so like I think Gerald said something about dawn.
Like we need to get there before dawn. The sun won't be good for us.
Yeah. I don't know.
While you're looking at the book, while you're doing that, I'll say the one that I had was she says that she remembers this place Shandystone because Oberyn took her, Tyene, and Sorella there.
Yeah. Well, tell me about. Do you know anything about the man that was going to steal her? Was it Oberyn?
I don't know more than what I said. I don't think
That
there was a
was
spoiler
weird.
to it. It was weird. Well, I will. So part of what I said in that section of the podcast, I think, is related to this spoiler. So Oberyn took Arianne, Tyene, and Sorella to this place before, right?
Yeah.
And when he was there, he showed Tyene how to milk the venom out of the snakes, which makes sense because she's the poisoner. Arianne dreamed of men, which makes sense because she is kind of wanton, right? They say that Dornish women are wanton. Arianne is kind of wanton.
She's throwing it around a little bit.
But Sorella was looking around, like flipping over stones, trying to read the murals, and wanted to know everything about the people there.
Right.
What do we know about Sorella?
See, I'm.
It's okay.
Oh,
I'll give you the second.
Wait, well, there's another one
Don't
that's.
say it.
Is she the?
Don't say it. Let me give you a second clue. So
I think I remember though.
I know.
So,
but let me piece it together one more time for you. Because when you were talking
it's
about
hilarious.
what are you? It's hilarious. Because when you were looking for who has the Widow's Peak, right, which is what who Arianne dreams about.
I thought it was a Stark, to be honest, because of the dark eyes.
The dark eyes. So when I told Kyle in this chapter, I was like, the only people we've ever heard of that had a Widow's Peak, and I said I think it's a Dornish trait, we've heard Oberyn, Rattleshirt, Cotter Pike, the Sphinx at Old Town, which is Olaris, Sorella, and Nymeria Sand. So Oberyn and Alaris and Nymeria Sand.
Two of the five, or whatever. 40%.
3 of the 5 are Oberyn and 2 of his daughters. So, exactly. I think that's. And it's interesting. What is Sorella doing when she's at Shandystone? She's trying to learn about all the history. And where is she now? She's at Old Town getting links. So yeah, Arianne's kind of hitting the nail on the head with what everybody likes to do in that little section. It's cool when you know, I guess.
Yeah, I can't find any of the dawns, but it was a lot of like sunset symmetry, sunrise.
Yeah, definitely, and stars because of Dark Star and stuff. I think, yeah. So I guess the last thing, and you kind of even mentioned some of it at the beginning, is where does this start at? Shandystone?
Shandystone.
And Shandy means
Lemongate.
Lemon. And she's like, they're all passing a skin of wine except for Darkstar. He likes to drink his lemon water. And when Marcella shows up, they give her some lemonade. It's not, they don't say lemonade, but it's like water and sweetened water with lemons.
I thought it was just what Darkstar was drinking, but.
And then when they get close to the green blood, they literally see lemon orchards.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, because at first it was just like an olive tree, and then it was like I think a lime tree, and I was like, damn, no lemon trees in this part, and then it was a lemon orchard.
Yeah, exactly.
No red door.
So Danny's from Dorne. No red door. So yeah, those were the 2 I had. And
right past the lemon tree was a red door with a little house.
Right past the lemon orchards was a big red door. Yeah. Yep. So cool. Next one is she's Princess in the Tower, basically, and I think you were kind of maybe even subconsciously alluding to it. Basically, she's left with the Syvas table, and when she eventually meets with Doran, he's like, "Did you play Syvas? Well, I had you locked up." And she's like, I was by myself. Who am I supposed to play with? And he's like, sometimes you have to play a game in your own mind against yourself to figure out how it's played. Which again, I think is kind of pointing back to this chapter. Is like that's what she's not doing.
Yeah, she's not thinking about the other players. She's only got her.
And I agree with you that it's not as much as what I was saying that she's completely naive, and it's more that she's just this is her first try.
She is naive. Well, she is naive.
She is, but it's because she's never done it before. It's not because she's.
I think the way you were saying it was just like. She could hit restart and not give a fuck. Like that's playing a game. Is like, all right, do over.
Well, to your point, I was kind of saying it like that because I know what happens, and that's kind of what happens, right? Like, she's a princess, so what happens? She gets locked up in a tower for a month and then gets let go, right? So,
yeah, but she gets let go because there's a bigger plan that's like now she's in on.
Well, and I think I kind of convinced myself during the normal podcast that even though that's true because of the way it turned out here, if they would have gotten like further down the green blood and they actually would have crowned Marcella, then like Ariane's life is just as much at risk as everybody else's at that point. Like if they get far enough along,
she's out of Doran's plan at that point.
Yeah, so like it is a slap on the wrist right now because she's like Doran was able to stop her before it became a real thing. But like, if it would have become a real thing, then she would have been like herself in the line of fire for consequences. So,
who told? Do you know?
We don't know. So that's another question: is who told?
Who do you think?
So Dre is a Dalt from Lemonwood.
It's the freckled girl.
She's related to Aaron Santagar, who was Sylvia Santagar. Aaron Santagar was in King's Landing. He's probably one of the only people who knew that the dagger that killed Bran
was Littlefinger's.
Was Roberts.
Yeah.
He's the only one of the people that knew that, I think. So, and he died in the ride at King's Landing, which people think Littlefinger had him die because he knew too much.
Because he knew too much.
And then Garen, Greenblood orphan. Put me on the spot. I don't know. Think about it right now. I would probably say Darkstar too, but I feel like that's the basic answer, which leads me to think that there's a
like does Darkstar just want mayhem? Like, all right, I'll have them get caught. I'll cut Marcella, and then I'll get out of there.
He tells Ariane like
it's not going to work.
He says like this is how you're going to start a war with a sword, not a crown.
Sure.
And then, well, I think the other thing we hear is Darkstar is the only one that's not here. Like, so like in the next Ariane chapter, they have Garen, they have Sylvia, and they have Dre all locked up, and I think none of them really get punished that much.
That's because Darkstar bailed.
Well, exactly. So that makes him look guilty, right? Like, at least in my eyes. And again, it's convenient that Ariane kind of blacks out.
If you were the rat, though, for Hotal, like, you think that would be like an element, like you were the spy for them.
Well, I guess the other point is, Ariane says she's really good friends with these three people, which doesn't mean to me that they won't betray her, but that's a good stance. And like I said in the normal podcast, we don't know her relationship with Darkstar. I think we actually do. So it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. I think it probably makes sense. Like, I would say him just because he's not around.
Okay.
If I'm trying to remember what Preston thinks too, I think on one of his videos, and I think basically his thought is out of her three friends, whichever one gets punished the least. They all do get punished a little bit, but nothing bad. And I think Preston's thought is whichever one gets punished the least was the rat. And I forget what that even means. But we'll get on with that more in the next one.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's all I got. Arya 2, Faceless Men. It should be cool.
Alrighty. Let's roll. See you guys.
See you guys in that one. Bye-bye.